Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be asking the question, what if Mexico won the Mexican-American War? Now, I know this seems kind of crazy to think about, just stick with me. You see, today Mexico is known for its great tourist spots and the great beaches, or it's known for the border problems and the caravan currently happening at the time of recording this, which is all culminated with the corrupt government and cartel system. Which, of course, you might be asking, how does this all start? Well, it all starts whenever Mexico was a young country. It would allow immigrants from the U.S. to just walk over the border, which would lead to the Texas Revolution, where the Texans would want full independence. And after they did achieve independence, America would annex Texas and then demand even more land, wanting to buy it at least. And whenever Mexico denied, America would cross the Rio Grande, causing Mexican troops to fire on the Americans, which would start the entire war. Of course, Mexico lost this conflict, but what I'm proposing in this alternate timeline is that Mexico isn't just going to let the Americans immigrate, but instead be more reluctant, building forts in the north and having a military presence in the northern states, as to stop the immigrants from just easily walking in. This would make the Texas Revolution very smaller and probably fail to the Mexicans, making it so America would even have the extra territory to go to the Rio Grande, but it is still really likely that they still would demand both Texas and the northern states, saying that they'd buy it, but then declaring war whenever that doesn't work. But of course, with more forts in the north, it'd make it so the Americans' campaign would be much slower and harder. Of course, this timeline, the landing in Veracruz would fail, as there'd be a Cinco de Mayo-like battle that would lead the Americans to lose, which would lose a lot of support in the states, as this war was already unpopular in our timeline, and would be even more unpopular with so much deaths. Of course, with the war's unpopularity, President Polk would most likely be forced into signing a peace treaty with the Mexicans, having to cede the land of South Louisiana, and giving up all claims to Texas and the Oregon Territory, and giving war reparations. Of course, in this timeline, something kind of good would happen, to whereas the American Civil War would be put off for a lot of years, as westward expansion was a big cause of it. Of course, this would also cause the abolishing of slavery in America to be delayed by a couple years too. Also, the losing of this war would cause Imperial Japan to never really industrialize but stay the whole Edo period of the shogunate rule, causing the emperor to most likely just fall out of usefulness. Of course, the UK would most likely mop up this small island into its empire. Meanwhile, this also changed the history of Russia, as Russia would never have to give up Alaska to America, because America wouldn't have a west coast anymore. And even if it did offer Mexico Alaska, Mexico would mostly decline, because what would they do with that ice block? Literally nobody wanted it. Meanwhile, Mexico would actually have a gold rush, as the gold in California that would be later discovered by America is now discovered by Mexico. Also, this would change the political scenario of Mexico, as it would go from coups and uprisings everywhere to the strong centralized dictatorship of Santa Anna. Meanwhile, America would have its own change too, as it would go from the superpower we know today that stretches from Arizona to the grassy lands of Alabama, and it'd go to an isolationist country that would most likely see Washington's whole isolationist thing as a good idea now, as they just lost the war to Mexico. Meanwhile, Mexico would most likely adopt its own form of manifest destiny, believing it was entitled to all lands in North America, and most likely spark an alliance with the Brazilian Empire and Argentina, as to, stop literally every country from trying to destroy them. Meanwhile, whenever France tries to expand back into North America like it did our timeline, it most likely make allies with the US this time, and whenever it would declare war and try and invade Mexico, it most likely also use French Guiana to attack Brazil and team up with Colombia. Of course, this would lead to the Great America's War, where France, the USA, and Colombia would try to take over the Three Brothers Alliance. It's very hard to say who might win or lose this war, so I'm just going to end the scenario right here. Of course, the thought of a Mexican victory during the Mexican-American War is kind of absurd. They were kind of the biggest underdog of all. Comment if you saw any inaccuracies or if you thought of a different way they could achieve victory. Also comment any alternate history ideas you might want me to do in a future video. Also remember to subscribe if you like my content. Okay, guys, bye.